The rap the white Mississippians had was that black people in Mississippi could vote if they wanted to, but they didn't want to. That's why they were not registered to vote. White people were stopping them from doing it. They don't want to do it, and they're happy not doing it. So we thought, how can we demonstrate that these people do badly want to register and want to vote? And we decided to have what we called a freedom vote, in which two candidates were running. This is a mock election. Candidates running for governor and lieutenant governor. Aaron Henry was president of the state NAACP and a courageous man. He's a druggist from Clarksdale, Mississippi. Was a gubernatorial candidate. And the other guy, lieutenant governor candidate, was, what was his name? Ed King, another king. This is a white king. Ed King, who was the chaplain at Tulu. And they ran on a radical platform, a minimum wage, and enforcement of civil rights, and all the kinds of things that, say, in New York would have seemed ordinary, but in Mississippi, like, what? And they're two brave men who carried this on. And we set up balloting places all over Mississippi, churches, schools, and so on, and sent out freedom ballots, or created freedom ballots, so you could come in and vote for these guys, and 80,000 people voted. 80,000 black people in Mississippi came and voted in this mock election. And to us, that was sufficient proof that black Mississippians did want to vote, and would, if given the opportunity, would be glad to vote.
And you see how SNCC then went ahead to what is the next step? And the Freedom Summer, and students were to come down, seeing this response from African Americans means that you were getting people who had everything to lose to want to go to the polls. And they organized in order to, the Freedom Summer is legendary. That's when Kainer, Cheney, Goodwin, and Schwerner were murdered. The same summer, SNCC organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. First by sending, they had caucuses. So SNCC people went to the Mississippians went to the caucus, were excluded. Having been duly excluded, they formed their own delegation. We all went to Atlantic City.
No, I didn't go, and I'm resentful ever since. We were planning a trip to Africa. James Foreman told me, he said, you can go to Africa or you can go to Atlantic City. But you can't go to both. And I noticed he went to both. But I could not go to both. So I didn't go to Atlantic City.
Well, Eleanor, I think for so many of the young people here, it's important to understand that the freedom vote, the freedom ballot, and what Bob Moses, it was a brilliant idea on the part of Bob Moses, really. Just brilliant. When I think about it sometimes, what happened when the three young men arrived in Mississippi on the summer night of June 21st, 1964. And I don't think young people understand today, these three young men, two white, one African American, just went out to help, to try to make it possible for people to participate in the democratic process. And they were detained by the sheriff, taken to jail, and later that same evening, they were turned over to the Klan, where they were beaten, shot, and killed. And when we talk about terrorism, that was terrorism.
That's how they began the Freedom Summer.
Yeah, and that was a sad and dark time for the movement. But we didn't give up. But when I think about it sometimes, you have to say to people, these three young men didn't die in Vietnam, or in the Middle East, or Africa, or Eastern Europe, or Central South America. They died right in your own country.
It certainly shook the country, and it's interesting to know that the people were undaunted. They were organizing the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, came to Atlantic City. I wanted to come back in '64, having participated in this prototype of the Freedom Summer. But Bob Moses said, oh no, you stay in Washington and help write the MFDP, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, brief. wrote this brief under the supervision of right here in Washington, Joe Rao, wonderful labor lawyer and great progressive lawyer. And that was in Washington. When Ella Baker was going to run the lobbying operation, poor Ella. We worked Ella so bad that she said, "Ella, you're going to run the lobbying operation." I tell you, it was a 24-hour day operation. We would send people like John out, and John would go out with somebody from, let's say, the New York delegation to try to convince the New York delegation to vote for the alternative Freedom Party delegation, because we had gone through all the right procedures. They had refused to let us in, so we were the rightful delegation. The highlight of the '64 convention was Ms. Hamer's speech before the Credentials Committee. I have never heard anything like it. And Lyndon Johnson was so afraid of the power of her speech that he made an announcement in the middle of Ms. Hamer's speech. It was the most electrifying speech I have ever heard. Then, John, do you remember, finally something had to be done, and they offered us a compromise. And they compromised that we could have two non-voting delegates, guest seats, and we turned it down. Nobody wanted to do it after what we had gone through.
And we had to remember what Ms. Hamer said. Said we didn't come for no 2 seats, because all of us is tired.
Yeah, really, after what the delegation had seen and gone through in Mississippi, they didn't think it was too much to ask for some seats at the Democratic convention, where the Democrats expected African Americans to vote Democratic. Look, you have heard straight from I'm not going to say the horse's mouth. You've heard straight from two civil rights heroes a rare interaction about how they work together and what their lives are all about. I want to give you the opportunity to speak from where you are. We haven't got to speak about, for example, the influence that what John and Julian did may have had on some of the movements that came after them. But here is a microphone right here.
Walk around microphone by the funds. Wait your turn, please, and come around and take your questions.
Channel 16 is there, so you guys can make sure you're heard.
Thank you, Honorable Norton. Thank you, Honorable Bond. Thank you, Honorable Lewis. My name is Sylvie Bella, and I'm with the Cameroon American Council. I work with African immigrants. I'm just so excited to be here. Honorable Bond, I've actually heard you speak at the New Organizing Institute, and I've asked you a question on how can we get the greater diversity of African Americans to take part in today's civil rights issues. And Honorable Lewis, you mentioned that in college, the African students talked about the Jim Crow era probably not ending. Well, our generation of African immigrants, we are not going to repeat the mistakes of our fathers and mothers from back then. We've actually partnered with the National Action Network, and we're going to be meeting you down in the march, reenacting the march from Selma to Montgomery this weekend, which the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network is doing. We're organizing African immigrants to take part in this very important march, which NAN is putting together. And I'm still want to ask the question again, what can we do to get the message that comes out from the civil rights movement into the Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino, Afro-European, and African immigrant communities so that we can have one Black agenda.
All American to learn a lesson and turn their pages from the early days of the Civil Rights Movement and be an all-inclusive movement, not just African or African American, but Latinos, white, Asian American, Native American. And in a real sense, we must go back to where Martin Luther King Jr. and others left off in 1968 when Dr. King had planned to bring people to Washington during the Poor People's Campaign. I just think that in the African American community, but also the white community, in the Latino community, Asian American community, Native, we're just too darn quiet. We're just too quiet. We need to make some noise. And we need to find a way to push. And I'm talking about really push. And so many of us think that we won, we have arrived because we elected Barack Obama as president. And people ask me whether the election of Barack Obama as president is the fulfillment of Dr. King's dream. I said no. It's just a down payment. Only a down payment. We're not there yet. There's still too many people in America are suffering, hurting. You travel to certain parts of America that people just, I don't understand it, why people are so quiet. We need to get out there.
Out of interest of housekeeping, I just want to get an idea. Do we want to go till 10:30?
Yes.
Is that the plan? 12. All right, is 10:30 okay?
10:30 is good.
All right, good. So maybe if we can get some hands and get sort of a stack going. Wow, this is a big stack. All right. Yeah.
Let's get a couple at the same time.
Look behind you.
You want to get a couple at the same time?
You absolutely need a microphone.
Yeah, you do. Because you're trying to record it. If you can go all the way from the back to the front, maybe. Start in the back, and then just move forward. We'll start giving
But make it short so that we can get in everyone.
Making it very brief, thank you to each of you for what you've done in your working towards the civil rights movement. I wanted to know, as a leader that you are and living through the civil rights movement, what was your reaction to presidential candidate Rick Santorum when he said in plain English that I do not want to make the lives of Black people better by giving them money of someone else, giving them someone else's money? That was the direct quote. I just wanted to know, what was your reaction to that? Because you mentioned making noise. Is that something that we can afford to ignore? Because I think the danger in his statement was that he singled us out. He singled us out and separated us as if we're a subclass or second class. So my question is, what is your reaction to that, and what type of noise should we be making to address him stating this on the national stage that he doesn't want to make the lives of Black people better?
You know, John just said something that's very, very important about people making noise. It's hard to make noise if there isn't a movement around what we enjoy and understand that. But when you hear statements like that, I hope that your response isn't simply personal anger. I hope we all understand that as Joy and I have sat in the Congress and seen the House taken over by Tea Party Republicans, that we have a sense of what life would be like if you did not make some noise in 2012 at the polls. I am very afraid that the extraordinary elation of our community at having, in fact, elected a Black man to be president before many believed that could happen, has rested with us. I didn't expect, we expected the House, Democrats to lose some in the House because that always happens when the party in power has all the branches of government. We did not expect to lose as much as we lost.